Hello, lovely. Welcome to the Find a Lovely Life podcast, a safe place for all self love journeys. I'm your host, Monica Rodriguez, and for the past 9 years, I've been on my own self love journey. Healing can be really lonely, especially when you don't know where to start. So let's figure things out together. If you're looking for inspirational stories, conversations with some lovely souls, and a little life advice, I think you found the right place. Or maybe it found you. Let's try our best and find a lovely life together. I'll share some of my lovely life lessons along the way. Don't worry, you're safe here.
Well, hello, lovely. It has been a couple months since I did one of these self-love check-ins. I want to do these more often, but I also just really like talking to people about their self-love journeys, which we've had a lot of this season that I really enjoyed, and I hope you have too. And if you haven't gone back to listen to some of those wonderful conversations, I started this new Find a Lovely Book conversation segment again where I talk to my clients as a literary agent when their books come out, which I had two come out this year, a horror novel and a debut literary novel. And so I love talking to authors and writers and artists, creators about their process in their self-love journey through writing, because writing is just really cathartic for me. And talking about their characters and their self-love journey is almost like mirrors and reflections of our own self-love journeys. So if you haven't listened to some of those, and if you're kind of like in a reading slump, those are two episodes that I think you would hopefully love. Maybe tune in. The other two really great people that I talked to this season was a masseuse and a florist. So somebody that works with the body and somebody that sees flowers as a way of creative sort of life journey. There's so many good nuggets of conversations in those two. So if you haven't caught up this season, whatever conversation calls to you at whatever time in your journey, those are always available for you. But these are kind of like a little bit of like fireside chats, a little bit of updates, and just kind of checking in with myself on my self-love journey and what I've been doing and how some of those things that I've been doing can maybe help you along your self-love journey. This year has been a year. I mean, health has always been something that I've had to deal with in my life. And I think this year sort of flipped the mirror on me. And every time it just sort of like reminded me that we might kind of like be going through a very autopilot way of treating ourselves and loving ourselves. And then all of a sudden the universe sort of like does a 180 and flips it completely opposite. And you have the opportunity to like think about it or go about it in a new way. And it can be sort of difficult, especially if it's such a big like identity building thing that you may have had in your past. My dog has gone through some health stuff too this year. So we both were, we're very cohesive in our healing journeys together. Our energies are very in sync. And so I think it's also kind of given an open door to like just new waves of grief and my relationship with grief and how I handle grief, because I believe grief is a form of love. And so every time there's a wave of grief that comes, it just shows me how much I'm capable of love and how much love is this sort of like everlasting energy that surpasses us in this life. And it's very like in between space of who we are, who we want to be, people that have left us and still have remain, a high impact on our lives and how we move about the world. And so I think these past 6 months have just been more of the aftermath of that. The first 6 months were very in it, like in it in chapters. And then I got another opportunity to really kind of process grief in a different way through identity as well. And so I think that processing your grief is important. Being gentle with yourself in that process is important, because every time the wave hits, it feels different. And everybody processes grief in different ways. And I think that the more that you open yourself up to understanding grief with the lens of, oh, this is just love being reflected back to me in a way to remind me that love is this continuous energy that just like never ends, and implementing that in a way to accept yourself and really transform into a new version of yourself. I keep getting the image in my mind of like a snake every time I'm like, what's going on with me? And it's almost like this past couple of years, I've been shedding this many layers of myself that I've had to grieve and just come to terms with. And now I feel like I'm in this new place where the skin has come off, but I can see the skin. It's like laying next to me, and I'm still laying next to the shedded skin because it's still a part of me, but I'm now this new version of me. And how it feels very like new. Like, how do I want to walk in the world as this new version of me? Who do I want to come with me in this journey? One of the earlier episodes this season, we talked about Mercury retrograde. It's that time of year again. We're in it again. And this one's really interesting because it goes between two different signs, a water sign and a fire sign. And so we're alchemizing and transforming. I think it started in Sagittarius, which is like a fire sign. And then we went to Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's just going back and forth between Scorpio and Sagittarius. And so those two are like very deep, transformational, water, emotional Scorpio, and very charismatic, outward, external energy that wants to move forward in a very philosophical way. And so when you combine those two elements, you might be feeling a lot of like, this is the new path I want to go, but here are still some of the old things that I may not have quite fully healed yet, or they've been coming up in an emotional way. And so I kind of talk about how to work with Mercury retrograde in episode 13, I believe, through your self-love journey. So I've been using that as a tool as well as I kind of navigate this new chapter of my life. And it's funny how like the more I kind of use the tools that I have in my toolbox for self-love, the more I'm able to understand, oh, that's right, that's what's happening. Let me look and see how I can kind of work with this energy, because there comes a point in your self-love journey after you've kind of excavated, after you've kind of looked at the skeletons, healed past versions of yourself, that you now start to alchemize and bring them with you and turn it into this new version of you that continues to evolve. And then that's where sort of the grief hits, right? Because you might be sort of in that in-between state where you want to go forward, but there's still parts of you that really need that tender love and care. And going back and forth doesn't mean that you're abandoning yourself. It actually means that you're going back and forth between two versions of you that are becoming this new version of you, right? And so being gentle with yourself as you kind of like embark on that journey, I think, is important to remember. Some of the things that I was sort of like defining self-love to be earlier this year, when I kind of started thinking about these check-ins with myself, one of the biggest things was exercising like what authority was to me in my life, and how that kind of ties to self-love, how to continue to not just like put yourself first and advocate for yourself, but what parts of your life do you actually have autonomy to make choices based on your desires your goals, your dreams, and actually take action on them. I'm a very organized person. Shout out to my Virgo Jupiter. And I think sometimes in my self-love journey, I can feel like I get in this like too comfortable sort of pattern. And I want to kind of like, and it starts to feel like, am I passively loving myself a little bit too much? How can I change something? And I think one of the things that I often practice when I'm feeling that stagnant sort of energy creep up a little bit is if I make one change in my routine, if I start learning something new. I've been trying to learn or really be in the practice of like actually committing to learning. I chose Italian right now, language learning. Curriculum Club is all over my For You page. And so building curriculum based on things that align with the future that I see for myself, that I want to go run up against the wall towards. How can I practice? If I can't get to that point B, how can I practice creating a path that feels more point A to point B to point C so that there's a feeling of forward movement and practice, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm failing or I'm behind because I'm working towards building that life that I love and that I see. And sometimes it's hard because you see the end goal and you see where you want to be, and you tend to kind of like want to be there. Like you want to get to that point. And so I've been practicing, how can I live part of an immersive life that I see for myself in a way that still is integrated in my current present timeline rhythms, to not jump ahead, but really enjoy the time that I am in right now and balance that sort of version of me that I see and becoming her, being her, while also immersing myself into what would she do like day to day in a way that doesn't detach me from who I am right now, but slowly sort of like merges those two versions of me to feel balanced in a way that doesn't feel like I'm abandoning this current version of me right now to go pursue this life that I really want to be. And so there's that kind of like delicate balance of like practicing seeing the version of you that you want to be. Because we talked a lot about in the last self-love check-in, like being in a point in your self-love journey where you've healed a past version of yourself and then you kind of like want to get to that next version of yourself, but how to not abandon your in-between state and like not kill this person off completely who served that version's purpose of you to get you to where you are now, but sitting with that liminal space version of you that's trying to become the next version of you and making sure that there's a symbiotic relationship and you're not abandoning yourself. Because the whole point of self-love journeys is to make sure that, yes, you heal a past version of yourself and we love her and we care for her, but it's also not abandoning that version of yourself so that you can just get to the next version of yourself. Because every version of yourself is important, and accepting every version of yourself is sort of like what builds the momentum for you to accept the new chapter in your life. And so something that I've been doing recently is sort of planning out a future, but then also within that future, making sure that I choose goals that help me build habits that I want to take with me to that future version of myself that I see. So, for example, something that's really important to me recently has been taking myself out to eat breakfast without work. Think working from home, I had this really great schedule of, once or twice a week, I would go work from a coffee shop. And a lot of that trained my brain to think the only way that I could enjoy a coffee or a meal was after, like in a reward sort of sense. And of course, this is like past programming. And so when I realized that I was doing this, I kind of paused and asked myself, or I challenged myself to go get a coffee in the middle of the day and just take a book or just listen to a podcast or just not to work, but to enjoy myself, which kind of ties to the other thing we talked about, self-love being how I've been kind of embarking on this pleasure sort of chapter of my self-love journey and making sure that pleasure is bringing me joy and it's not just like something that I'm earning. Because we deserve pleasure for just existing. Like, I don't think you need to prove to yourself that you deserve a lovely life, which is something that I've been working a lot towards. But deprogramming and deconstructing in my own self-love journey, one of the ways that I hold myself accountable is by putting things on my calendar. I had a non-negotiable standing sort of like self-love date appointment with myself on Fridays. And after that, I that worked for me for a while. And then it started to become too much of an autopilot thing where I started neglecting it. And so I recognized it and said, I need to do something else. I need a new routine. I need a new way to prioritize myself. And so instead, I'm a big Trello girl. Love the project manager in me. I will put a link below to Trello. It's a lifesaver. I use it for work. I use it to organize all of my many jobs, many tasks, many client projects. But I thought, if I use it so much to organize my work life, is there a way for me to use it to organize my desires? To see it almost like a vision board, but an actionable vision board, an actionable task list. There's a lot of things that I've wanted to do that just kind of float around in my head or like I have on a notes app, but I used it as a way to, I created a self-love date Trello board. And I have cards, I have like a list per month and I have different categories, whether it's like a meal, event that I want to go to, a service, maybe I want to go volunteer for a week as a self-love date, things like that. And I started organizing it on this board. And it was like an active way for me to visually see how I was loving myself, how I was prioritizing my time with myself outside of this sort of like habit that I had built that served its purpose for a time that now expanded and opened up this routine of really embodiment of spending time with myself so much that I'm busy. I'm a busy woman, okay? Because I have prioritized myself so much that's like, oh no, I can't. I have this. I have to go to this. Obviously, in those moments, if I'm telling somebody that, and this is an opportunity for you too, like self-love doesn't mean that you have to isolate yourself unless you're in a period where you really feel like you really want to spend time with yourself. That's fine. But the point isn't to isolate yourself to this level of like, I'm not going to spend time with anyone. The point is that you create this habit of, I want to go do this. I'm going to go do it. You take authority and you prioritize and you take action and you move forward. And then if someone comes along and says, I love that band. Oh, I'm going to that concert this weekend. Do you want to come? And it's an open invitation and it removes the worry or like the, well, I'm going to go, but now I don't want to go because they're not going to go. It sort of helps build the muscle of almost like rejection therapy, but also like also noticing when someone inserts themselves and if you feel icky and you're like, oh, I don't actually want them to go with me. Then it's like, oh, wait, why do I feel that way about that specific person? And so I think it helps build a different type of habit muscle by creating accountability on yourself. And then you can visually see what are the things, and you can do this like on a Notion board too. I've seen that. But Trello is what works for me right now. you can visually see like, oh my God, I really prioritized myself this month. And you can plan, but then things come up and you can be flexible. And so it's practicing being actionable towards your time and spending time with yourself in your self-love journey and caring for yourself and taking yourself out on dates and being outside of the normalness that you may have created at one point. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of like take yourself out of that and keep moving forward in a different way, while also giving you the opportunity to have fun with it and have your brainstorm all in one place and then take action on it, and also practice flexibility, right? You can plan things out, but the whole point of like self-love check-ins is, I really want to go do this thing. I'm going to put that on my list. That's what I want to do. And then day of, you're like, wait, I don't really feel like doing that. I actually feel like doing this instead. So it practices showing up for yourself, but then also listening to yourself and what you really want to do to love yourself in the way that you are now, right? And sometimes I have like a standing sort of like monthly check-in with myself where I'll look at all these goals for my life. What am I working towards? And then I readjust, right? And we talked a little bit about this in episode 5 with Self-Love is Action. And I'll put a link in the description to any of the podcasts I'm not mentioning as a little curriculum, as a little check-in if you want to go back and listen to those conversations. But allowing yourself to make self-love goals and then checking in with yourself and saying, this goal doesn't make sense for me anymore, and allowing yourself to be able to change it along the way is the beauty of the self-love journey, because you're able to check in, reroute, and then keep moving forward. And I think a lot of that, like having that system set up for me, has allowed me to explore pleasure and joy in a way that felt safe. Because to me, I have discovered that one of the reasons that it's hard for me to figure out what I want or tap into my desires is because a lot of times I may not feel safe. Safety is a really big thing for me. And so asking myself what I want sometimes is hard, because for a long time I couldn't figure out what I wanted. And it wasn't that I didn't know what I wanted. It was that I didn't feel safe enough to want or desire. So if you're kind of struggling with like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even know what I want to do by myself, because I don't even like spending time by myself, right? Ask yourself, instead of what I want, what do I need to feel safe? Because the safetiness is going to open up the ability for you to then tap into your desires and your pleasure experiences. Because one of the things that I've learned in that as well is like self-love right now for me, defining pleasure as a sacred offering to myself versus what I used to define it as, like pleasure was a reward that I had to earn. And so feeling safe enough to allow myself to desire things helps me open up to even more desires. There comes a point in your self-love journey where it's fundamental for you to feel safe, to figure out what you want. And then there's a big part of it that's like opening this huge Pandora's box of, well, I've never allowed myself to want certain things. And then you start sort of dreaming about it. And then you get very much, this is a very important part of your self-love journey, is getting to ask yourself what you want. But then sometimes we get in this habit that feels safe of, well, I'm just going to like dream about it. I'm just going to manifest it. I'm just going to pray about it. it's just going to live up here. And the brave part about self-love is that it can't just live up here. You actually have to take action and release it and do something to move it forward. Because if you just stay up here, it's just gonna like make you float a little bit. And what we want to do is not stay here, but access this area to give us an idea of how to ground it so we can take action and move it forward. The universe works with this energy, but the action part of it doesn't happen until you kind of like come back down and take an action towards something you want to do for yourself. And there's definitely courage to be had, and it's brave to tap into your desires, to tap into your pleasures, to experience and explore your pleasure. But that's just like the edge of it. And if you're feeling frustrated because you're like, well, I'm doing the work, I'm thinking about it, I'm like taking myself on date, or I'm doing something, I'm prioritizing my creativity, I'm doing something, but nothing's happening. What is it that you want to happen? Let me ask it a different way. If you're stagnant and you're frustrated that things aren't changing, that your season isn't changing, things aren't moving, the question to ask yourself is not, why isn't it changing? That question alone tells me you're craving change. Why is anything happening? That implies you want something to happen, right? Ask yourself instead, how do I want to be transformed? What do I want to be transformed by? That is what turns the wheel. Because there's a level of accepting that you want something to change, and then accepting that you may not be comfortable with change, but you do want change to happen. The internal part of that is figuring out what you actually want to be transformed by, not necessarily why yet, but what exactly is the thing that you want to transform you. And that's the power of like the energy that we're kind of feeling right now, right? It's the Scorpio-ness of it, the karmic healing. It's tapping on your window of, I want change. The universe will respond with, great, love change. What do you want? And then you're like in this cycle, right? Because you're like, well, I don't know what I want. So that's when I point back to like, how do I feel safe? And then I can figure out what I want. And then when nothing's changing, I need to ask myself, what do I want to be transformed by? And what do I want the transformation to be in myself? Because when you put the mirror back on you, that's when you start taking the action that will then be reflected outside. We can't really control the outside change too much, but what we can do, and if you want to control something, then instead of controlling the outcome, take charge in the action of the alchemy and the change within you so that you can keep, it's like the illusion of control. Actively pursuing change is an illusion of control to help you feel like you have some way of doing something, but it's also like the authority of your life that comes into play, which is defining what self-love is for me right now, right? So like having authority over your life, choosing your desires, feeling safe to choose, and then pursuing them in an actionable way that prioritizes your needs. And I think a lot of that process, you might run into this sort of tower moment where you're pushing forward and you want change within yourself and you start changing, and then it starts surprising the people around you. And then your external world starts falling apart and changing. And then you're like, that was a little too much change. Can we like dial it back? And that's okay to like pause and reflect. That's what these self-love check-ins are, right? It's like you move forward, you ask for something, you go and you try to transform. You touch the surface of it and you're like, oh my gosh, I just need a break. It's like you're swimming in the pool and then maybe you tried to hold your breath underwater for a little bit too long and you got some water up your nose and you're like, I just need to like not have iron taste in my mouth for like 2 seconds and I just need to breathe. And that's okay. That's like a little pause, right? And pauses are important because just like in the creative process, I often say that my writing process, a lot of it is thinking. because the creativity happens right here, right? And then I kind of like go into it, but I need this time to like have it become something before I can like alchemize and create it physically outward. And so in the same way in your self-love journey, you might need to spend some time up here, like we were talking about, and then slowly release in waves. You don't have to like do it all at once, because the way that you're going to keep being able to release and accept that transformation that you do desire is by allowing yourself to do it in waves and checking in with yourself to see if that's still the direction that you want to go. And that to me is advocacy, authority, and part of the journey, because self-love is you asking yourself, is this what I want? Does this make me feel safe? Yes, let's move forward. I don't feel safe anymore. Okay, what will make us feel safe? This will make us feel safe. What do you want now? I want this. It's not what I wanted before, but now I have this new foundation and I feel safe enough to pursue it. And I think a lot of the time, like in my personal journey, it's been lately, one of the life update things for me has been doing this sort of like new actionable authority of life sort of approach, and having so much joy in those moments. Like there's been some times where I'm like, I had such a great week, and then I tell someone about it and the immediate response is like, oh, like it's either they like feel sorry. And I know that like it's almost a projection of their own fear, right? Because I had some other people, it's been just so interesting. Like, I really love the life that I created for myself. And it baffles people that I'm so content and so happy being single. I've encountered a few people that have like almost projected their own fear that my life is their nightmare. Like being alone, God forbid, is the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to them. And it's funny because I really like the freedom that I've been able to cultivate. Freedom was a really important word for me for a long time. And it's just interesting I can see like the seasonal wheel turning and like being at this point in life where I am so happy with what I've created, and people are often really surprised and like my time management and the work that I do and how I manage it. And some of them don't like it. And it's been really important for me to really work out what balance looks like, what pace of life I feel most relaxed, attuned to, how pleasure kind of ties into it, how I can, God forbid, enjoy life. And I think most people think that as a single person, I should be suffering or I should be miserable. And it's just really funny because it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like I have the best week. Like I'll go to the movies, I'll get a massage, I'll get my work done. And then someone will just feel bad that I went to the movies by myself and I didn't even think about it because I was so freaking happy. And it's just such an interesting part of the journey. And the other interesting part, and I've been talking to my therapist about this a lot too, of how like singleness sort of gives you this freedom, right? It doesn't replace human connection, but I don't really ever feel alone because I've just met so many versions of myself deeply, that I've accepted myself so much that I just truly enjoy my company. And it took a long time to get to this point. But I also feel like the life and legacy that you build, there comes a point where it's like okay to welcome other people and ask for help to build legacy and to build and continue building that life. And a couple years ago, my word of the year was community, and I just dove straight into that. And a lot of the people that I built community with that year are no longer in my life now. And I think that one of the things my therapist reminded me of is that the more we change, which I embrace change, and I hope I am always evolving and changing. And the more that we change, for me personally, I have this I've talked about it a little bit before. I have this mirror ability, right? People are going to come in and out of your life a lot. One of the things that I think has helped me feel safe, that I know that I need in relationships, is that sense of safety and security, because I have allowed myself to experience what that feels like. And there comes a point where in your self-love journey, I've been doing this for so long that I hope everybody reaches this point where it's like, I've done as much as I can alone, but I also don't miss certain people or energies that don't make me feel better about myself. And so there's this new sort of hyper awareness of, I feel really good if I allow this person in my time and energy. Do they make me feel good as well, or do I leave feeling worse about myself? And I think people sometimes can prefer to just sort of be okay with that. And I've reached a point, because I just am so self-aware, and I joke and say I have a self-awareness kink, but you'll get to a point in your self-love journey where you love yourself so much and you love spending time with yourself so much that it's not lonely. My therapist always says loneliness is just you telling yourself that you crave connection. And so one of the things that I am checking in with myself right now is, if that wave of loneliness comes up, because I'm human, right? We all are. It doesn't matter. We're going to feel it. It's an emotion that comes in. I ask myself, am I looking for connection, to be around other human beings, or am I looking for depth? Obviously, I'm always looking for depth. But if I feel like I'm not going to be met with that depth, sometimes a new coping mechanism that I've been doing is I'll go volunteer somewhere, and that gives me an opportunity to have human interaction and have a form of connectedness. The deepness is something that I'm still obviously craving in human interactions, and I remain open to it. But if you're at a point where you're I don't want to be alone, and I don't want to do self-love because I just don't want to be alone, then I want you to ask yourself, what type of loneliness are you feeling? Are you feeling alone based on connection, or are you feeling alone based on depth? And if you're feeling alone based on depth, the self-love journey is actually, I think, the perfect antidote for you, because you are craving to meet yourself at a deeper level. And so opening yourself up to that can actually combat loneliness. If you're not too much into the depth, and you're really just kind of well, I just don't want to be alone, but I'm feeling lonely and I just want connection. But then I think the baby step is, I'm going to go be of service and volunteer somewhere and surround myself with connection, but I'm going to do it alone. I'm going to do it on my own for myself. And I think that's just that can help sort of not only redirect your routine, give yourself authority, but then also maybe you find a place that does make you feel safe. And then it opens up that opportunity for you to then dive deeper into a more in-depth connection with yourself. So that's where I'm kind of at. That's our self-love check-in. Those are a couple of things that I have been really diving deep into really exploring. It's a continuation of 6 months ago, but I think I feel more connected with myself, not in the sense of like the future hot Monica that I saw, that I talked about in the first self-love check-in. I see her, but I feel like I've become her more. And so I don't aspire to be her as much as I feel like I embody her. And I think that's another important part of it. So I want to pull a card for us, as I always do, just to check in and see if the universe has anything else to share with us. And this time I was called to pull from the Sacred Feminine Oracle, and I'll drop a link in the description below. These are divided by chakras, and I don't know, maybe there'll be something that we need to know to help us in our self-love check-in, to check in with ourselves. And maybe there's a message of healing or transformation. We got two. Ooh, but the first one is wise, an owl. This is giving trust your intuition. This is giving you're smarter than you think, that you've allowed yourself to believe. And we have untamable. It's interesting because we have what we were talking about up here, the like crown conscious manifestation, sort of intuitive level. And then the red is the root, which is, in order for these two to connect, which is the first and the last chakra, you have to like coincide and work with them together. So the first one I would say is to allow yourself to trust that you have the wisdom and the intuitive capability to love yourself. One of the words that I have, I don't know why. Well, I do know why. Men. But for the longest time, I never described myself as smart or intelligent. I know, it might be a shocker. Until a man asked me a really stupid question recently, and then I thought, wait, this man thinks I'm actually stupid. So I think what this is giving is trust that the wisdom that you have is guiding you to discover the transformation that you are craving in your self-love journey. Because fundamentally, in a pure safety way, you are actually untamable. Like, the authority that you have over your life is the power that you have to create the life that you love. And if you're craving this sense of freedom, this like wild, even like feminine rage within you to kind of like phoenix rise out of yourself, then you have the wisdom that you need to take action. These two can't work together unless you actually take action. So you might have the wisdom, you might know what you want, but in order to like do it and become this untainable thing, and we have 2 4s here, I just noticed. 3 + 1 is 4 and 4. So I think maybe the foundation, and maybe you're working from an old foundation that might not be like clicking for these two to kind of like open you up to a safe way to have authority over your life, knowing that what you want might be clouded by the judgment of others. So hopefully that resonated with you. And at the bottom of the deck, we have unrecognized. So maybe there's a fear of accessing that wisdom and abandonment of the wisdom personally, that you might not feel connected to it, which is inhibiting you from taking action. And maybe some of your past is sort of like the fear of not being seen. But the beautiful thing about the self-love journey is that you give yourself the ability to see yourself. So if you have a core wound of not being seen by others, why not take the plunge and see yourself? I don't know. And maybe, okay, I heard, why, maybe what if I don't like what I see? If you don't like what you see, then ask yourself, let's go back to the transformation. Then how do I want to be transformed? You got to dive a little bit deeper. Asking why is important, but asking how and implementing that how, embodying the how, and taking action on the how is more important because it will answer the why. And it might change your why, which is part of the check-in, right? All right, my lovelies, I'm going to end it with a lovely letter that's going to surprise me too. Check in with yourself. All right. So the letter I chose is interesting because earlier in the episode, I was talking a lot about like identities, right? And like some of the identities that I've been sort of reaching the edge of or redefining, having the opportunity to like, I just feel like I'm reaching the end of a lot of identities that I used to identify with in a lot of different chapters and work and in personal and like health. And so one of the identities that I feel kind of tying back to a lot of the comments that I was getting these past couple months of just like the nightmare of being a single woman. I thought this was like a good letter to read. I wrote this February 15th, 2021. I think when I was finally accepting this identity of myself, like 4 years ago. I have a different relationship with it now, but I was curious to see how I sort of thought about it 4 years ago and how that related to me now. So the letter is, Dear Lovely, stay single. Okay. Dear Lovely, stay single. Learn to love others when you're ready, not when you're lonely, not when you're longing. Let the love you seek find you, within you, around you. You deserve love. Don't let this make you think you don't. You do. The greatest love there ever was, always. I'm just tired of you choosing the wrong people. The people that don't love you the way you deserve to be loved. You deserve to see the love around you. Next time you see a couple, admire them. Don't curse them or make a sour face. Attract the love the universe places in front of you by being grateful for the reminder that it exists. This season of singleness won't last forever. Your time will come. Love yourself for a season. While partners teach us and help us grow, the best way to know how to recognize the love you seek is to seek it within you. Take some time to realize your worth, not forever, just for a season. Your worth is so much greater than you think it is. It's so much greater than the person who hurt you. Learn to love yourself as much as you love others. Be kind to yourself. Be patient. Create the life you love, and love will appear within you. You will start to attract the love you feel for you. You are worthy of it. You are made from it. It is available to you. Remember that you are love, and no one can take that away from you. With love, me. She was a sweetie. She was so sweet. She still is, but we're a little, she's sweet. I'm doing it. See? We love her. We love her. And we love who we are now. We love her, and we love who we are now. You love your version of you, and you love yourself now. Okay, I'll leave you with that.
And that's the episode. I hope you're inspired to love yourself a little more than you did yesterday, and you're on your way to finding a lovely life you love. If you want to read more about my self love journey, head over to findalovelylife.com. Subscribe, rate, and share this podcast if you feel called to. Remember that your self love journey can start or restart at any point. There are no rules. Stay connected with us on social at Find a Lovely Life, or if you want to see more of Monica Life, you can find me at Lovely Monica, and that's spelled LOVELEEMONICAA. I'll say goodbye for now. Thanks for listening. Until next time.